Yep.
Good evening, folks. It is the Factivist report for Sunday, the 1st of May. It's May Day. We have a special guest with us tonight. It's an actual real live teacher. Her name is Maria Skiffington. And she's here to dispel the right-wing myth surrounding indoctrination and grooming of children, among other things. So Dave is the interviewer. So he's going to start.
So first, Maria is a kindergarten teacher, and kindergarten is a big hot topic because apparently, Maria is a big indoctrinator and groomer. That's what the right wing would like you to think. But one thing that I know, I don't even know if I could say education system. I was a student teacher, and I worked in volunteer programs for a short time, about 10 years ago. And I have an inkling of what this is about. And first off, my experience shows that teachers don't have time to indoctrinate, even if they wanted to, and they have too many outside sources. But I'm going to, ask certain questions, and hopefully you guys will understand that from a real life teacher and from a kindergarten teacher. So I know, again, you're a kindergarten teacher, and we have all these standards and things that you have to meet. So at this point, in terms of your kids, what do you look for that your kids need to know by the end of the year? Just general stuff, basic Common Core stuff with English and math, and
so basically, every kindergarten student by now will hopefully know all their letter names.
Right.
Most of them do, and then all their letter sounds. And most of them do go forward with that. That's like your base, what you need to go to first grade. They also are supposed to know, so hopefully 40 sight words, but at the minimum 25. Some of them go through with a little bit less, but that's okay. We are Title I school, so we have Title I support for those children who might need it in first grade. They should be able to do, know their shapes, have an understanding of measurement, not using like rulers, inches, like know that you line two objects up and this one's taller, one's shorter, one's heavier,
Gotcha.
one's lighter, know your basic math without
Concepts.
using actual measurement tools. Yeah.
Right.
And adding and subtracting, so they would like them fluent between adding and subtracting up to 5. So
Okay.
all your families up to 5. That hardly ever happens as long as they get the concept that when you add, you join two groups together and you can count them up and come up with something. And subtracting, you have a group, you're taking some away. That's basically where they're at this point for that.
Okay.
So most of what we look at is literacy and math. So science and social studies, it's kind of like a continuum. So they're like, okay, so in kindergarten, they understand the flag, they understand basic holidays, they know the pledge, which we do say every day in schools. People think we don't, but we do. And they, for science, it's based on the standards, things like weather, how does weather affect like how we dress or what
Right.
goes on outside, and
Yeah.
how do they do know that animals create more of themselves. We don't talk about how they do it, but they know
Right.
that animals have babies, people have babies, trees, make more of themselves, all living things. And the basic things all living things need, water, air, space, things like that. They learn about habitats. So all that stuff is basically where we're expecting them to understand at this point. They don't do money yet, but they do understand. Like they don't know money, but they do understand that you go somewhere, you give money, you get something. You work, you get money. They understand those basic concepts, which are in the standards.
A couple of questions. One, in terms of the pledge, have you ever had a kid say that they don't want to do the pledge? And
I have, but usually it's the parent who will say it. they'll tell you right at the beginning of the year. So you don't say anything. So we will, like, as soon as there's like a little tone, we'll tell them to stand. If kids don't stand, or it's not like that big of a deal. Most of the kids do. But
Gotcha.
if a parent says, I don't want my child standing for the pledge, we just remind them or say, you know, you don't have, your mom and dad don't want you doing this. It's very rare.
You know,
Right.
I have to say, I don't have a problem either way. You know,
Yeah.
my kids, when they got older, they didn't want to stand for the pledge because they got political, you know.
Right.
You know, living with me, it's kind of hard not to. But they have a right, they have that right too. The problem I have, you know, when I'm looking at, you know, specifically Rick Scott's idea, where his 11-point plan to save America is requiring prayer and the pledge in school. That's a violation of the Constitution, by the way. That should never come from government. That's my only problem. If it's voluntary, if my kids wanted to stand for the pledge, just because I don't stand, I never stood up at the baseball games. I just didn't do it. It was not me, you know.
What we'll do is, if they want to sit or not stand, as long as they're quiet, so those people who want to do it can do it.
Without
I
being
don't
interfered.
say anything. I just go, you need to be quiet. You know, some people. So.
And curious, do you use manipulatives to count on and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, there's all kinds of different things. They use like a 10 frame, number charts, number lines. Yes, manipulatives. They can use that. They're actually, we encourage them to use your fingers. We have everything out for them. If you want to use little counters, you can. If you want to use your fingers, you can. If you want to draw, you can. Whichever you're most comfortable with. So we teach them all those different ways.
Now, one thing that I was actually quite happy to see is that in the standards of Massachusetts state standards, they talk about cultural awareness. You mentioned a little bit about it. Do they really in kindergarten touch much on it, or not really? Like
I think that just
neighborhoods and stuff.
Yeah, I think like as things come up, like we do something at the beginning of the year that tells a little bit about each other.
Gotcha.
Where they bring a little page home and they fill it out, and it talks about their favorite foods, you know, the holidays they celebrate, different things like that. So we'll talk about it, and we have a calendar. And so if it's Chinese New Year, we'll put that on the calendar. And I'll ask my friends, I go, are you celebrating, you know, Chinese New Year? And they're like, yeah, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And they explain, but it's like very, you know, like you would have talked about Christmas for a 5-year-old. Yeah. It's, and I'll might read a book about it, you know, so the kids understand what they're going home to do. Things like that. The interesting thing is that every time I ask kids if they're celebrating Kwanzaa, they don't know what I'm talking about, or like all of like 5 white kids raise their hands. So funny. I'm like, okay, all right, let's read a book about Kwanzaa. So you just read a book about Kwanzaa. It's like a very rare, I guess, maybe in my community. And a lot of the Black people in our community are Haitian, so I don't know. That's an African American holiday. So
basically, what you would do is say anybody in the class celebrating blah blah blah. Because
like
if you go to an individual and ask them, they might feel
No, I'll just say, is anybody celebrating Ramadan? And I did have a child I thought was, but they didn't say anything. So I was like, okay, well, we're just going to read about it because it's going on right now. So you can understand what it is.
You know what? You know, I feel
there's nothing wrong with it.
What's a problem with that? You know, it's interesting. It's a point of interest. You know, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, same with Hanukkah. We read about Hanukkah, and some of the kids are like, "Whoa, you get presents 8 days. You're so lucky." You know, stuff like that. So you know, it's funny. So and it's good for the kids to understand that. So
I think so too.
Yeah.
So one thing, you know, going through all this stuff, Deb and I talk about the politics and politicians talking about teachers grooming kids and teaching them how to be gay and teaching them that they should be ashamed of being white and all this nonsense. And I see a lot of stuff about TikTok videos talking about teachers who supposedly are, you know, trying to teach kids to be a certain way. I'd like to hear your view on how much control you actually personally have over your materials and over the curriculum, because I know that first off, you don't have that much time to really get stuff done. You have you have the state standards you have to follow. You have things that that you're mandated to do. You have class, presentations and or like auditorium stuff, that pop up. You have fire drills. You have COVID. You have all this other stuff.
In kindergarten, just going from one place to the next is taking up time.
Right, exactly.
So
exactly.
We don't have control over our curriculum because we're given a program for literacy, for math, for science.
Right.
Social studies is a little bit more loosey-goosey in kindergarten. The other grades have textbooks and stuff, but in kindergarten, because you're basically teaching them how to be with other people, how to share, how to be kind, how to be accepting, how to understand their different viewpoints. That kind of stuff kind of gets wrapped into your everyday, communication with the kids. But, your literacy, you have certain phonics things you have to follow. You have, certain reading things you have to follow. You have certain writing, programs you have to follow, certain math programs, and all of that is, that's how you come up with that's how you assess a child. So you're using the program's assessment. If you're doing your own thing, and then you're using your own assessment, those assessments are what hold you accountable. So if you're giving a different assessment, you're in trouble because they're not matching everybody else. So we don't have much say in our in that part of our curriculum. With our supplemental things, like where things are more loose, like social studies or even like science, though we do have a curriculum, but you might want to add to it to make it a little bit more authentic learning, as opposed to showing a video. Like, I'm not kidding you, this program that we have was showing a video of how ramps work, when I could just go over to the block area and get a ramp block and a vehicle and have them all try it. I was like, why would I show them a video when I could?
Exactly.
So some of that stuff we have a little bit more control over. But as far as the culture, the race and all that stuff, we're not doing critical race theory. We're doing, it is CRT, but it's called culturally responsive teaching. And that is totally different from critical race theory. I don't know if you want me to get into this here or not.
Yeah, go ahead.
But what that is just understanding that your class is made up of all different types of cultures. And so, your class library should have books. They talked about how when we were growing up, all of our picture books had mirrored us. So we saw little girls that looked like us, little boys that looked like us. But, kids of other colors, people of color, didn't have that. Now there are way more picture books like that. So that's it's easy to have that stuff in your classroom. So once in a while, and we're not talking about books that talk about being Black or about Black history. Just like a story called Julian as a Mermaid is a Black little boy who loves dressing up like a mermaid. We read that story because he's just a little Black funny boy, just different books that have Black or Asian or, Middle Eastern characters.
I can promise you right now, if they were reading Julian as a Mermaid in Florida, that'd be a banned book.
It probably would, but that book is really just, none of the kids even thought anything of it. They thought it was cute.
I'm being facetious.
You're probably right.
I think Ron DeSantis would have a fucking aneurysm.
It was probably a bad pick, but there was also one called Ada Twist Scientist. And she's a little Black girl who was into all kinds of science things, which also goes along with Iggy Peck Architect and, all these other different ones. And they just had different color, different race, different.
Right. The only reason I said that about the mermaid thing is because.
No, but you're right.
Not only are you promoting, Black culture, but he's a mermaid. How is that possible?
Yeah, he's just a little boy who likes to dress like one. I know, which is probably not good, but
Well, no, I actually don't think it's a problem.
I mean,
That's-
not good to those, like you said, in Florida.
I
Yeah.
mean, I'm sure the adults would have a problem with that. I'm sure the kids don't have a problem with that.
Yeah, they just thought it was cool because it was a really well illustrated book. I think it's Caldecott actually, but so.
So I'm just curious as to how long CRT, as you know it, has been around, because there was an individual who actually took the letters CRT and created the term critical race theory.
Out of
So
nothing, I might add.
out of nothing. I'm wondering if that term was already there and he just inserted those words.
So I don't know how much you know about, well, in my school system, there was some racial issues in the high school. And so I would say right before COVID, we started culturally responsive teaching into play. Or right at that same time, because I remember all the things were on Zoom. So it was like right about that time. And it was literally like very isolated, but my I don't know if I'm supposed to say it. My school district is very responsive. They're not going to let anything go. So they addressed it, and it's just been growing into more like how we can just like think a little bit more about that when we're teaching and bring it in. Like I said, if we're learning about buildings, don't just show, the typical Frank Lloyd Wright, white guys who are architects. Bring in people of color like Zaha Hadid or whoever else you can find. And, we're lucky that it's done by Boston Public Schools. They give us a whole book list so you can find all these great books. We're going to be looking at the environment. So now we're going to look for environmentalists of color, just to add in. We don't even say, look, he's Black and he did this. We just say, this guy did this. This woman did that. And just so that they see,
you don't have
exposed to the you don't have to say anything.
You don't need to say anything.
And you don't have to say, see white kids, other kids do it too. It's just like natural exposure. Right. Try to make it as authentic as possible.
Right. And I think the politicians make up shit. They make up shit to create issues. They're not even in the classroom. I don't think they've ever stepped in a classroom and watched any teaching going on. And it's absurd for them to create problems for political gain and mess around with kids and teachers like that. It just is so off the edge for me. It is unconscionable for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I was in, doing the after school stuff and doing my thing, I was on Long Island, and MS-13 was a big issue. It was an issue, but one of the things that everyone tried to do is just try to, first off, teach the kids how to be safe and all of that, but also cultural education, and let people know that not everyone who is of a particular culture is MS-13.
Right.
It's like, and by the way, who came around like right after that time? Donald Trump. He visited Long Island and he talked about the dangers of MS-13 and immigrants and blah, 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 blah. So, for it to be a political issue, it's not really, the immigration thing, but it's a human issue. Mm-hmm. People are different. Yes, they're bad people everywhere in every culture, but there are people that have different foods, music, everything else, and they're just people. And you can appreciate what they bring to the table.
Yeah, and I do think that being a kindergarten teacher is a little bit easier because those kids have not been exposed, maybe their own parents might be racist, but I feel like it's not being shared by their friend group right now. And right. I think as they get older, you find more friends who are more like that. and you become more influenced by them. So right now you have this opportunity to, in kindergarten, to like just expose them to the fact that there are so many different cultures and there's so many great things about every culture. You don't even have to say it. You just like read, you know, reading a book about, like I keep saying, reading a book about, I don't know, police officers, or I don't know, anything, firefighters, and how there's all different, you know, types of people in the world who do all kinds of different jobs, or
different professions, different
just all
places in the world. You know,
right. You don't
Maine is different than Florida, which is different from, you know, Arizona. Yeah, thank you, Deb. I mentioned Arizona again. But yeah, everywhere is different, right? And people are okay.
And they're just people, and it's good to know about different people.
Yeah.
Doesn't make you any worse. It just doesn't, and it doesn't mean it's bad that you're not that way. It's just
right.
I know.
So I know you talked about it pre-stream, but in terms of parental rights, yes, parents have the right to say, hey, I don't want that book read in front of my child, or I don't want this and that and the other thing. And by the way, parents do have the right, and you don't really teach sex ed in kindergarten, but parents have the right to pull their kids out of sex education.
Oh yeah,
they do. So
that's unfortunate, I think, because you know, I don't know. I never had a problem with my kids getting that education there. You know, I remember when I was that age, and my mother taught me shit. Really, I know my mother was not going to sit us down and explain all of this stuff to us. You know, she just wasn't. That you didn't do that back in 19 whatever it was. You know, I mean, I was born before the fucking Civil War, I think, but I feel like it these days. But my mother certainly didn't sit down and explain anything to me. Somebody had to do it, and I never had a problem with my kids learning it. It was an environment where it wasn't me sitting at a table with them. They had other kids in the classroom. You know, they had a teacher and they had a nurse that actually participated in that in the upper grades. So, you know, I don't understand it. I really don't. I just can't. I can't. Things has been going on for years, and all of a sudden it's a problem. Really.
I mean, go ahead. I'm sorry.
If a parent says, "Hey, I don't want my kid involved in this particular lesson or this particular whatever," what's the process? They just send you an email or a note, and you have to modify.
Yeah, they'd send a note, probably an email, and say that they don't want their child, you know, listening to a certain book or whatever. And like you said, though, the thing that gets tricky there is that means, you know, either nobody else listens to it, or the kid goes, you know, for a walk with the aide or something like that while you're reading it.
Right.
So I think it depends on the situation. I luckily was able to find a book that had what I needed in it, but wasn't as, you know, blatant as the book in question.
Yeah.
So you do things that way. But there, you know, for that particular incident, that was a book that had families that had gay parents.
Right.
Every year I have a student with gay parents. I have at least one student every year, pretty much. And it's like, nobody even talks about it. Nobody even, you know, like today, this year I have a girl who has two moms, and she's like, well, I have two moms. And they just kind of look at her like, whatever, I don't care if you have five moms. They don't even like bat an eye anymore. I don't think it's like a big deal for, you know, a lot of kids. And that was a few years ago, that parent, right before COVID, did that. But yeah, I mean, same thing, like you were talking about being held back. We can't hold a kid back if a parent wants him to move forward. Things like that. As far as promotion.
Another thing that I don't think people understand is that this is a fluid situation. I'm sure that a first grade teacher would come to you and say, hey, you know, did Susie know this, out of the other thing? Because their assessments follow them from grade to grade. Yeah. So you guys have to be on point. and make sure that everything is covered that needs to be covered in the curriculum.
Right.
And all this, I saw I have the article. It's a Washington Post article. DeSantis pulled a bunch of books. I think it was like 50 books that had very small examples of race in math. And they were like little snippets and stuff. Yeah. So first off, how much time do you really have to do everything in a math book? You cover what you have to cover.
Yeah.
So
there are sometimes too, I mean, and that obviously would never be in a kindergarten book.
Right.
Because you have to read everything basically to the kindergartners. So you're like kind of reading the instructions to them. But yeah, I can't get through every single one. And sometimes I decide I'm not going to do it because I want to, like the ramp and the car thing, I want them to manipulate stuff and figure it out that way instead of sitting in front of a math book. Yeah. So, so that's a little bit of creative freedom, but it's not like you're going to talk about race. I mean, I don't think that.
Yeah, even in the books though, that the math books that they showed, people, really. I mean, I looked at I spent 4 hours looking at this shit, okay? I looked at every single thing. Is there something wrong with telling kids that they need to be respectful of one another? You know, I don't, there's nothing in there that taught them about race. It's fucking ludicrous, all right? It is crazy. It is.
Right. Well, the only social concept that I could think of right off the top of the bat that was completely obvious that would be in the lower grades is very simple division because it's about sharing.
Yep.
You have 6 gumballs, you have 2 people, how many can each person have?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, what's wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with that.
That's basically how we do things like that,
Right, of course.
We'll say, Johnny had 5 apples, he gave 2 to Susie, how many are left?
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like that's common.
Right.
So the last thing before I get into a couple of the examples I want to show you of books and stuff like that, in terms of sex education, again, there are programs out there, and there are programs out there for younger kids, but basically it's about protecting themselves, knowing what's okay, what's not okay, no touching and certain areas, no means no. Yep.
It's not explicit. That's the thing. It's not like I sit them down and go, okay, we're going to have a lesson about how to be safe. Another thing about kindergarten is kids are always touching each other. It's like one of those things that you have to deal with every single day. And so regular touching, you don't really say much about unless the kid's like, he keeps tapping me and I ask him not to. So that's when you get into when a person asks you to stop, you need to stop. No matter what it is, you need to stop. Right. So that's like a lesson that is continually, repeated just in regular day to day. And then if the touching becomes, he, hit me on the bum or whatever, that's when you start to say, we're not supposed to be touching each other anyway. You keep your hands to yourself. But when, you're talking about the areas that are covered by a bathing suit, that's private. You don't touch a person there.
Right.
And then that's it. It's not like an ongoing lesson. It's not like a whiteboard thing or a video or anything like that or a book.
Right.
It's just, this is how it is.
I thought it was a bit much. I thought it was a bit much in the lessons where they're teaching the names of the parts. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but it reminds me of Kindergarten Cop where the kid jumps up and says, "Girls have, boys have a penis, girls have a vagina," and everybody laughs. It kind of.
We don't do that. We don't have those standards yet, like I told you. And usually when we get the standards handed to us, we have to keep them in the classroom so that we have them with us at all times. So that hasn't been given to us, but I can't even imagine how that would even go. If you're going to start talking about
exactly.
With
it's
these
like
little kids, because as soon as somebody gets touched there, they're like, "You touched my privates." It's like, okay,
exactly.
This little conversation, and that's it. You don't have to, if it becomes a repetitive thing, then obviously you need to talk to parents,
right?
And that's what it is. You don't do a whole class lesson about it. You take the kids involved talk to each parent, because the parent whose kid was touched also needs to know. You're not going to, ignore that.
Right,
But it's not like a explicit
right.
lesson. And I think they do learn from those kinds of interactions, because that's what social emotional learning is.
It is
Indeed.
indeed.
On the fly, as you're with each other. What do you think about talking to a person that way? Right now the thing is tattling. So, they come and tell me when they could I go, what might be better, since you're friends, maybe if you could tell the friend what's bothering you. Did you tell the friend what's bothering you? No. So you just came right to me? Yep. Well, why don't we try talking to the friend? That's all social emotional. How do you deal with
Gotcha.
difficult things, even if it's little silly things, to us?
Right.
To them, it's a big thing. So you teach them, let's see if we can have a conversation.
Right.
And,
And what breaks that limit, and what, is appropriate for them to come to you.
Right.
Like at the,
Yeah.
Yep.
They always know what, and I still get tattles that are not me needed, but I just say, that's something you can handle. Let's see, you go give it a try.
Right.
And I stand nearby. I don't want to be in, I'm trying to stay out of it, because I want to see them try to do it at this point in the year. But like, that's all built up in just being a social person, how to be a person with other people.
Right. The last thing.
I always tell the parents, I'm 58 and I'm still learning how to be a person. Right. These kids are 5. And of course they're just learning how to be a person. So
I mean, there's some kids who act better than their parents. So it's like, but in terms of the bullying, the social aspect. First off, these kids have not socialized with other kids in a long time, so you have to know that. But in terms of the bullying aspect, the abuse aspect, I don't know if you're aware that in Texas, Governor Abbott is trying to block a program to teach kids how to respond to abuse and who to go to in case somebody, is doing something inappropriate, because he says it's a parental right. And Deb and I have brought up that sometimes a family member is involved in that abuse. So you have to understand that also.
Can't even.
Right. Teachers are mandated to protect their kids in the classroom. Right. So if they see somebody bullying another kid, they have to deal with it, because what happens?
It has to be reported.
It has to be reported. I mean,
even any signs of abuse also.
Right.
Right.
Any signs of like abuse that seem like, you can tell the difference between.
Well, repeated bruises or.
But like the bullying thing, every I don't know, I think this is Massachusetts wide. We all schools had bullying task force. This was pre-COVID. I'm going to say like maybe 5 or 6 years ago. And they had to pull together a bullying procedure, how the steps and what happens and how you deal with it. So we do have that. We don't really have or at least not in kindergarten. I'm not sure what's above, but we don't have like a curriculum against bullying. We look for how bullying is. We can tell children, you keep picking on that one person, and it's not kind, and it's behavior that you will need to talk to the principal about if I see this continue. So you like notice if there's one kid picking on one kid, that's bullying, and I have to mandated. I have to tell them. I have to tell the principal. We keep an eye on it. He has like certain things we keep track of and things like that. Like I'll just keep notes. And usually once I say that to a kid, they stop because they're 5. I'm sure once it goes up the ladder, it might be more tricky. And some of the stuff, like I said, might happen outside of school. And we don't really even know what's going on, you know?
Right.
So,
I mean, Deb and I had lists of examples of lawsuits against school districts on things that may have even happened outside of the school, but the school was aware that a kid was being bullied by another kid and didn't say anything, and it escalated. I had an extreme example. I was in a first grade classroom, and a kid was shoving rocks down a girl's throat. And it's, what do you do in that situation? Because you can't physically pull the kid off.
Right.
And then if you shout at them, oh, you're yelling at the kid. No, you have to do something.
Yeah, you have
Obviously.
to do something. You would, if I saw that, I probably would pull the kid off.
Pull the kid off. You have to.
Yeah, you just can't not. And then,
Well, as a student teacher, I couldn't do it. The other
Right.
teacher had to do it.
right,
You know.
yeah. So, yeah, I mean, you have to get, if something's happening in front of your face, you have to step
You
up.
have to do
That's
it. You have to.
potentially life-threatening for the other child, especially.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, absolutely.
So,
So,
Well, fortunately, I wasn't actually there, but I was terrified to hear that. But I did see that same kid choke another kid, and I had to, I just shouted stop, and he stopped, and he froze,
right.
and then I actually got in trouble for shouting at the kid. So, like, what am I supposed to do? You tell me exactly.
Right. I can't touch him. I
direct
can't
me.
yell at him. Yeah.
Right. You have to stop him somehow. You are
Right.
mandated to protect these children. So
Right.
you tell me how to do it. I mean, there are there are more statistics out there, and we've been through this, that a lot of these kids are bullied by older kids. There's that example, the story that I told you and that I showed you. It's horrific. It's in the
that's
sources,
horrible.
you guys. A little boy getting a tennis ball soaked in gasoline and set on fire, thrown at his face, third degree burns, and this kid just trusted the teenager, the older kid, and
he was 8 years old that did it.
is 8.
Yeah,
He was a
that's
teenager.
crazy.
He was
Yeah.
I thought he was 14.
no,
I don't
no,
remember
I had the
age.
story.
no, he was 8 years old.
He
and
was
the
8.
The victim was 6.
6. Okay. Oh, no. I'm thinking of another one. Sorry.
I'm thinking of the kid that killed the 11-year-old girl.
11. Yeah. The 10-year-old girl. Yeah.
10-year-old girl.
Yeah.
Yeah. The kid that lit the thing on fire, the tennis ball on
Was
fire,
8.
was 8. And by the way, he had done it before. Not that. He smashed
He slammed the same kid on the ground. I don't know if it was school grounds or whatever, but
So they've been
Yeah.
reporting this 8-year-old for a long time, apparently, because this kid's been abusing this one kid for a while.
Yeah, I think even if things are happening outside of school, they're in your school.
Right.
They should be the school needs to be made aware of it, so that
Yeah.
you have to have the kids safe, and if something's going on the bus or on the playground, you have to know that that's going on. Like if the kid isn't doing it in school,
Well,
you need to be watched in
one of
case.
the one of the funniest things that ever happened, and it's personal, was when Gwen was little. You know those sticky frogs?
Yeah.
all right.
Throwing them around the living room. This was when
Yeah.
we were in Amesbury, and throwing them at the door, and went to retrieve it just as Thalia was walking in the door, and the door hit her in the eye and gave him a black eye. So get on the bus the next day and said that my sister gave me a black eye. Right? No, that wasn't even the worst of it. That wasn't even the worst of it. So that nothing happened with that. But then 4 days later, 3 or 4 days later, again with the fucking frogs, I'm telling them, don't throw the frogs at the front door, please. Okay, don't play in your room. You don't play in the living room. Thalia opens the door again. This time the doorknob hits him here, so he's got a little cut. Oh yeah, my sister did that with the door, so they thought Thalia was abusing.
Oh my God.
They opened up a DSS thing on us. I started laughing. I called Paula Heimberg right away, my pediatrician. She started laughing. She goes, I'll talk to them. The school bus driver reported that Thalia was beating up her brother. That's basically what it was.
Which probably was mandatory.
It was
because-
Yeah.
I had no problem with it, but it's just
But yeah.
Christ,
yeah,
those
that-
freaking sticky goddamn frogs. You're not allowed in the house anymore. Don't bring those things in the house, okay?
Get rid of them.
It was
I could see the official file just says sticky frogs.
Alrighty. So, yeah,
Okay, so I'm going to do share screen now.
okay.
Here we go with the fun.
The adventure begins.
So let's see here. I'm going to start with this. I mean, this is you mentioned it, like when you talk about a certain topic, whatever it is, you just look at the different books that you can look at and the different levels of appropriateness that it has. The topic of hair on Black girls
Yeah.
is a very touchy subject. I knew that when I was a kid, but I learned it even more so when I was teaching, when a book called Nappy Hair was introduced, and everybody got very upset because of the word nappy. So you take a look at something like this, and you know there's lists of different books that you can look at.
Yeah, that
That celebrate
is a
hair.
popular one. Yeah.
Yep, that was actually some parents didn't even like that one for some reason. I don't know why.
Well, I mean, I think that some books like that are important, because I know I have had kids say, why is her hair always like that? Like,
Right.
you know, so because it's very difficult to get control of, a lot of times it's like braids and maybe little poofs or whatever, like
Right.
that one. And, you know, the little white girls' hair long down, maybe they have little ponytails, and, you know, and so sometimes the ones that are more celebratory are kind of nice to read.
Right.
You know?
I thought they actually had a picture of the book, so I'm gonna.
I think it's the way they approach it.
Right. Right. Well, the name of the book itself, because of the word. Let's see here.
Put book in there. It'll probably.
Yep. And the funny thing is, the author is African American.
Mm-hmm.
So she,
Yeah.
And parents got upset, and some didn't want to, expose their kids to it. Now,
I'm guessing it's the name. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the title, Nappy Roots.
Yeah.
Now, Dr. Seuss, it was a big political thing about, it's cancel culture. You're taking these Dr. Seuss books out. Dr. Seuss was a racist. Even his kids was a racist. Well, his books still are, but
Some of them. Yeah, but
some of them.
Yeah, that has become a thing. March 2nd is his birthday, and so it's Read Across America Day, and it's a big day to celebrate reading.
Yep.
And a lot of times you use Dr. Seuss books, but not so much now. Like we used to make little Cat in the Hat hats. We don't do that anymore. The only Dr. Seuss book I read during that is Cat in the Hat.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Now this is the original Roald Dahl Oompa Loompa illustration. Now they have an updated book, obviously, but Roald Dahl was, he was he was a racist.
He was.
Everywhere Babies. This is the
Florida. Just saying. I just can't.
I'm familiar with this author, Susan Myers.
Yeah, Mala Frazee, she's a great illustrator.
She's fantastic, actually. There is a particular illustration that, here it is, right here.
The middle, the centerfold.
So you see two women pushing a baby carriage, a man,
that
couple.
That could be anything.
Exactly.
I just can't even, you know what I mean? It's like what they see versus what I see. I don't even see what they're seeing.
Me neither.
I just can't, and again, you know why they see that? Can I just say it? Because they're racists and homophobes. That's why they see what they're seeing.
Yeah. I have an interesting thing that does everybody know Curious George?
Yep.
So we've heard that he's problematic because the man in the yellow hat took him from Africa.
Right.
And because he's a mischievous little monkey, they're trying to cancel it. And I'm like, well, he's a monkey.
He's not exactly.
Are you saying that certain people are monkeys? Because then you're being racist.
Right. Right.
I've heard that. I've heard that before. That
Exactly.
he's too humanized, and they're trying to say something about African Americans. Blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
My head.
Anyway,
It's like everything. It's like everything is so out of control now. It really is.
Okay, now this is a.
Okay.
This was amazing. To me, this is amazing. This is just a matter of you really need to do your research, and you really need to understand what you are doing. And also, you don't pick people out, or you don't single people out based on their race.
This isn't even something that needs to be acted out.
No.
They're old enough to understand by reading it or looking at it or whatever.
When I was in college, there was a college course talking about using different, props and all that sort of stuff. Our teacher actually brought cotton out and showed us, the seeds and how seeds were taken out. You want to go that far? Maybe you show it to everybody and maybe have them touch it. That's it.
Yeah.
You don't have, and you surely don't bring shackles out and tell kids to put themselves in shackles and only do it for the black kids.
Oh, the only reason he did it for the black kids was he didn't want to piss the white parents off. I swear to God, I mean it. I think he thought this would be okay if he did it only to the black kids. I do. I think he might have been a little bit of a racist. I don't know.
I mean, I don't see why you have to have them put on shackles. I would think it would be understood how that would feel if you could talk about it.
Right.
Well,
and
how on earth?
I think picking the seeds out of the cotton would be fun for anybody in the class.
Right.
I mean, maybe that's because I'm a kindergarten teacher, but like just to see what that's like. Yeah.
Right. You just do that. You get a bunch of that. You say, hey, but imagine you're doing that and you're doing that in 100-degree heat.
Right.
How does the cotton feel? Blah, blah, blah.
And you have to get so much of it done at a certain time or something
like
that.
Right.
How does that feel as a human? Just as a human. Yeah.
But you're not going to tell a kid to go out in the cotton fields and pick it. Freaking lunatic.
With shackles on. That's a real trick too.
So here's, greed is good. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis.
I can't stand this guy, man. Not on any level.
So, okay. This was just a graph of, processing data about racial prejudice based on a poll. And they pulled the entire book because of that. Now, this is an older grade, obviously.
And you know what? So what? Okay? It's an older grade.
Yeah.
It's so absurd.
They're talking about, testing, what, me racist? Let's pull the book.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I think they probably put stuff like that in there because that's what the temperature of what's going on right now in the world. So they try to make these word problems or whatever relevant.
Yeah.
Now, I know that parents think their kids are little angels.
Jesus Christ. Really?
But
yeah, some people do, you're right.
Will the parent of this child, the bully, the 8-year-old, they're just playing around? No, they're not.
Tennis balls on fire and throwing them in people's faces.
That little kid, look at Jesus Christ. I mean, Mommy, they lit me on fire. What the fuck?
It's horrible.
6 years old. It's disgusting. It really is.
Now, I understand that this is an extreme example, but things happen. I mentioned the example of the child. I mean, there are children that have serious issues that have to be dealt with. And teachers, administrators have to deal with these issues. And of course, deal with the parents who, of course, in many cases, think that their kids are angels and wouldn't possibly harm anyone.
Yeah.
So,
Once you have evidence, you kind of can't deny it anymore.
right. Well, the kid's face, in bandages and the freaking burned up tennis ball kind of does it. I was curious about this. I know you said you guys don't really have much, and I know you mentioned that you looked at the program and this program, and to me, all you really need to mention is, hey, respect one another. No means no.
Yeah.
And just continue to put that out there. But basically, this is how do you protect yourself? When do you report and that kind of stuff. But
which I think is for high school. I think that some kids
absolutely.
don't know. They don't know that they can go to somebody and be safe.
Right.
Or they feel ashamed. They think they did something wrong, even even as a teenager.
Yep.
And the digital safety, I do think that we must do that in the upper grades. With the little kids, we don't really.
This is actually a program for the parents. So maybe they could be a seminar for the parents for the younger kids, not necessarily for the kids, because
that would be great.
You have portable computers everywhere. I don't know. Do your kids have cell phones on them?
No, they don't have cell phones. Most of them don't even have cell phones in general, but they do talk about going home on their iPad and playing, going on YouTube. One kid said to me the other day, I can't wait to go home and just go on YouTube. And I'm like, okay, what are you doing? What are you looking at on YouTube? Anything I want, that's how they talk. It's probably not anything they want, but they talk about games like, what was that called? Fortnite. Yeah. Among Us. And there's one called Huggy Wuggy, which sounds much more benign or whatever than it really is, from what I've been told. It's scary. Like a Huggy Wuggy is something scary. I don't know what it is.
Right.
But they like I was saying, they sing TikTok songs in my room. And that one, I don't know if you guys know what the one that goes A, B, C, D, E, F, U, and that one. It's like, we're not singing that song in my classroom. I don't know if they get it or not, but it's still, you're on TikTok and you're listening to stuff that's not appropriate for you, and they're doing these other ones now, singing these other songs. I'm like, I don't even know why you're on TikTok. You're too little to be on that.
Okay. Yeah. So
it would be good for families to have that.
I'm going to put screen share on again. I didn't even know about this, but the Huggy Wuggy thing.
Yeah, I'm looking for it too, but if you got it, that's good.
So here you go. Police issue warning to parents over disturbing TikTok videos with Huggy Wuggy on it. So there you go.
Yeah, they think he's cute or something, but he's not. He's not. He's scary, I guess, in the video game.
Right.
Or maybe it's not a video game. Maybe it's just
a killer bear.
Killer bear.
Yep.
Charming.
Main character in Poppy Playtime, which I don't know if Poppy Playtime is a video game, but they'll be out at recess and go, let's play Huggy Wuggy. I'm gonna be Huggy Wuggy, and I'm like, oh my god, play tag. I don't care. Don't just.
I don't care about PayPal.
Well,
are we gonna?
You have to wait for the ad.
Yeah. So that's fine. That's another scary thing. Kids that get a hold of PayPal. I've heard about that one too.
Oh, I haven't heard that.
What's this $1,500 charge?
Oh, yes, I have heard some of that. Yes.
Oh, man.
A horror game.
Yeah. But babies everywhere is.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
They have to worry about that instead of worrying about this. Or worried about kids being on D Live.
Yeah, like whenever I hear them talk about Huggy Wuggy, I say that's not appropriate for your grade. You can play regular tag or freeze tag or
Hugging and killing and asking viewers to take their last breath.
yeah.
Oh man.
And that's when the most fights start. So they'll say like, this one did this. I'm like, what were you playing? We were playing Huggy Wuggy. You told you you're not allowed to play that game out here. Yeah.
Wow.
And then some of the kids don't even know about it and are just learning it through their friends. You know?
Right. Well, I just learned it through this Zoom. I was like, I never even heard of this thing before.
You know.
Yeah, well,
Now we know.
it sounds like it's not any big deal, you know.
Right.
Right. Well, you know, it's the same thing with like I was talking because Gwen's on Twitch all the time.
Right.
What
And-
is that?
That is a gaming site. I think you can film yourself playing.
Oh, do you like interact with other people and stuff too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But she told me when I was asking her about, you know, I've heard that, you know, a lot of the incels are on Twitch. She said, Ma, you're just learning about them now? I said, not really. I said, but I'm just getting a hint that they're on, you know,
Right.
fucking streaming on gaming platforms,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
She said,
Yeah.
yeah, they've been out there for a long time, the incels, the involuntary celibates who, you know, hate women. That
Yeah.
is what they are. They blame women for their misery, you know?
Right.
And
One
she said,
one of the
"But
things.
don't worry, I vet my
Yeah.
my community completely closed. You know, I'm
Right.
not, you know,
One of the things too, I mean, if you're going to do internet safety courses, is to teach parents about stuff like this. I mean, back in the day, it was jackass.
Mhm.
right.
Kids pushing kids down the
Yeah.
hill and, you know, throwing rocks at each other and all sorts of nonsense. So, you know, there's always been this thrill-seeking thing with kids. I mean, kids are going to be kids.
Like eating
But-
Tide Pods.
Right. Right.
They're like, let me tell you this. When I was a kid, maybe like, I don't know when did the internet come out? Like
95,
95?
1995. Yeah, that's when it really came
like
out.
2000s. I was online and I had access to the internet without supervision. And so there was this like chat of like penguins, and you could
Oh,
be
Club
a
Penguin.
penguin, and
Club
it would
Penguin.
attract kids, but it would also attract pedophiles. I don't even want to think about how many pedophiles that I probably spoke to as a 10-year-old,
Mhm.
you know, and they're still on the internet now. They didn't go nowhere.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You know, it's worse now. It'd have to be.
Right.
Yeah, Disney bought them, didn't they?
What?
Disney bought Club Penguin. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, my kids were on that, and then
Yeah,
I
my
started hearing
kids were
about.
too.
Yeah.
My kids were on there too
Mhm.
for a while. They got bored with it quick,
They
but
got bored with it, yeah, because you gotta earn all this stuff to get different clothes and things for your
Right.
house or whatever.
right. They got bored with it pretty quick. But you know what else? I read a great article in Wired. Another thing that all the kids I know were on Roblox.
And they're still on today.
They're fucking
I
terrible.
still hear about them talking about
They
it.
build they're talking about how they're actually, the right wingers out there indoctrinating kids. They're building like replicas of Auschwitz on Roblox. It's not just, you know, it's not just like the little fantasy stuff that they build. Now they're starting to build replicas of things that happened during the Holocaust or the Ku Klux Klan during the time they were lynching. And that's how they drag kids in. And kids, they can pinpoint which kids may be a little bit racist, you know, might have heard something from their parents, and then they hone in on those kids. And that's how they bring them in, you know, and it's fucking scary, you know, it's scary. And they said that when it started, Roblox was only 2 years old. So when a gaming site is young, it's not policed all that much. Okay.
Right.
Now that it's gone public and it's, you know, worth $550 million or whatever it is, it's policed a little bit more. but still not so much. Not so much that those entities are gone. They're still out there doing it. They just find other ways to do it, you know?
Right.
But people don't realize that these people are literally out there on gaming sites because they know if you can indoctrinate kids at a young age, you've got them, you know?
Yeah.
It's scary. And I think parents are looking at the wrong shit. I really do.
Well, yeah, you're looking at the wrong influences.
Right.
I mean, the internet is a huge indoctrination tool.
Yeah.
And I know, Deb, I know you did a video on it, what, a week ago?
Yep.
Yeah. So one thing I did, with just a quick story, I think I like sprained my shoulder or something lifting, and I had to go to, like, while I was at work, and I went to the emergency room, and a girl who had a foot cast on, she was on her phone typing, and she was talking at the same time. You know, I'm going to be at my house alone at 7, you know, once I get back from the hospital. And I looked at the parent, I'm like, you might want to look at what your kid's typing, you know. I'm not trying to, just take a look. And she's like, what are you doing? You know, it's like, you do not put in your private information when, you know, and say you're going to be at home. It's a public site.
Right.
You're advertising, hey, come get me.
Right. Right.
But kids aren't thinking that way. Some of them think they're invincible, even when they have a cast on their foot.
Right. Right.
So it's actually, you know, it's pretty, I don't know. Yeah, and when you're talking about what kids are allowed to see on the internet, I mean, there used to be a big push for internet controls and all that stuff, but now with all this talk about censorship, I don't know if the parents are just saying let them see it. Not everything is safe.
Yeah, I'm curious if there's still, like, you know how there was parental controls on television, so you could
Yep.
not let certain programming. I'm wondering if you can do that with devices too, so that they can go on age appropriate things, but not on everything. I'm not sure.
You can. Absolutely you can.
So,
Absolutely you can.
I mean, that's why maybe family education on that
Yeah, I agree.
would be a great idea.
Yep.
You know?
I mean, this Huggy Wuggy thing,
Yeah,
I didn't even know about it. And I guarantee you parents don't know about it. You know, some don't know about it.
Yeah, or they think it's harmless, something
Because
like
of the
that,
name.
you know.
Because
I mean,
that's
I remember when
Oh, it's animated.
I was saying when I was when my kids were about kindergarten age, maybe a little older, I knew all the stuff that the kids were talking about, because my kids were, you know, I knew all
Right.
the Power Rangers, I knew everything, I knew all.
Right.
Now I don't.
right. Me
You know,
either.
Right.
I don't, and I'm like trying to, like, okay, I got to look this one up. I got to figure out what this thing is. You know.
Right. Right.
Luckily, they're like kind of back on Pokemon too, so I'm like, okay, well, I know Pokemon, and I get that, and
Valia's still on Pokemon, believe it or not.
yeah.
She loves it.
So, but like when this Huggy Wuggy thing came out, and they told me that, you know, he kills you with a hug, and I'm like, what? I don't. So I go, that doesn't sound like. First of all, you're all fighting. You're all
Right.
fighting about it, so let's not play that game. You know.
Right. Right. Plus, the guy has razor sharp teeth. I mean,
Yeah.
back in the day, again, garbage pail kids were huge. That's just about grossing people out,
Right.
you know. But
I remember when Bonnie pissed us off.
Oh,
Right.
God, yeah.
Oscar the Grouch, can't he cheer up? You know, it's
Yeah.
like, you know. But yeah, so is there anything that you'd like to end with? Like, I mean, I don't really understand when people say, "Hey, the education system is indoctrinating kids." I really don't. I don't think they get
I just
it.
feel like people don't, you know, necessarily do their research, and when they hear that there's CRT in public schools, that they need to look at what that acronym means. And I don't know if it's the same everywhere, but our CRT is not critical race theory. It's
Well-
culturally responsive teaching, and I think that it's time for that anyway.
And-
I
but-
mean,
but-
we have such a mixed bag of cultures in our classroom that there's nothing wrong with bringing in, books that have those kinds of characters in it, or, talking about a certain holiday coming up. I always put the holidays on my calendar, and when something's coming up, like Eid or whatever, I'll say, does anybody here know what Eid is? If nobody knows what Eid is, then I will, if somebody knows, I'll say, can you explain it to us? So they know that it's coming from a person who actually celebrates it,
Right.
And then I might elaborate a little bit if it's, their perspective is just, a little 5-year-old now, not everything. And I might tell a little bit more about it, but I think that's great that they're learning. That
Well,
people do different
I
things
think
in
we
their-
have
in their houses.
two things at play here. Right? We have, first of all, CRT was a term that was invented based on a fucking PowerPoint thing by a guy who's a right winger who wanted to make a point. Okay.
Mhm.
What we have at play here are two things, right? We have people who are ignorant of the public education system. And when they say CRT is taught in public schools, they just automatically believe that it's taught from kindergarten right up through high school. Okay.
Right.
I also think it's appropriate for kids higher up to understand that slavery was real. I don't believe that we should be teaching a clean, a whitened history of the United States, because
Right.
Absolutely not.
you to repeat, if you don't get to the point where you can understand what we did wrong in the past and we just keep doing it wrong again. I mean, that's how people learn. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think that's number one. Number two, the driving thing right now in this country, and I don't think it's the majority of people, but it's certainly the loudest people, is the right wing doesn't want cultural diversity in America at all. We're talking about people in that America First group who want the borders completely closed, never to let in any immigrants, not even come up with
Right.
a program that's workable. They want to shut the fucking borders and return us to 1776. How often do you hear that? You hear Marjorie Taylor Greene all the time. It's 1776. Right. When we enslaved the black man and brought him here to serve the white man. We have a lot of things at play here that are not good right now.
I mean, you can boil down the great replacement theory to one simple word: racism.
Yeah.
That's what it
That's what it
is. And white supremacy. I want to show something real quick, because I think it's actually pretty relevant. So you mentioned culturally responsive teaching. So I looked it up real quick. So the person who is credited for creating the program or creating this is Gloria Ladson Billings, and it started around the 1990s. So that means that it's been around for 30 years when Christopher Rufo came up with the term critical race theory. I honestly think that then he shortened it to CRT. I think that was a purposeful marketing tool. I really do.
I would too.
It does sound like it. Yeah.
This guy is dog meat in my book.
Mhm.
Yeah.
He is. He's again, an opportunist is what he is.
I mean, I
He's
kind of feel like
a marketer.
they
too.
think that we can't be culturally responsive without insulting white
White
people.
man.
And that's so untrue,
Right.
because even within white families, there are different cultural things you do.
Right.
I talked about, when I was little, we would make raviolis. I go, she'd put a big sheet on the bed and I would help her carry the raviolis onto the bed. And then these little Irish boys and girls, everybody would be like, what? Like, yeah, that's what we do. It's Italian culture. Like, there's different cultures no matter what color you are. It doesn't mean that because I'm talking about other cultures, I'm talking bad about the cultures who I'm not talking about.
Right.
Right.
And I think that people are becoming like hyper, I don't know, sensitive or what about that,
Well, it is, but I'm sorry, but I see the white man as snowflakes. They just can't handle anything that might be a little bit different for them, and a lot of this shit's been planted in their heads by the politicians. They hear it over and over and over again. And I'm going to say it again. Memes, they're constantly being shared on Facebook and they're junk.
That's
Okay.
fact.
They
Yeah.
really are just bullshit.
It's somebody's thought, somebody's clever thought or
Right.
whatever.
Right. And nobody even looks at it. No one checks it out. No one sees
Finds
it
it
real, right?
Yep.
We've had a million quotes. We've had a million quotes attributed to people that they never even said. And people just keep sharing because that's what you do. Oh, look at this. This sounds good. Boom, let's share that,
Yep.
But
Right.
we have a whole nation of people now who can't think beyond a meme. They don't even want to read, let alone know how to read. We
Right.
have people who read at the 6th grade level in this country, and they're
Yeah, I mean,
adults.
How many times I've seen arguments over an article just over the headline,
Right,
and people are in there going, "Did you read the rest of the article?
Right.
You didn't read it, and it's true. It's like
true.
read it,
read the fucking read the article.
Well,
What the headline is, that's to get your attention. That's
Attention,
what
exactly.
we're doing creative kids. So
the argument that you shouldn't teach that kids should be empathetic towards the hardships of the Japanese who were in internment camps, or the Chinese who were forced to work on the railroads back in the day, or slaves or whatever. You don't want them to feel guilt because you want to continue to put in oppressive legislation now.
right.
Anti-trans legislation, voter suppression against African Americans, whatever you're going to do, things, the anti-abortion laws that are coming out, all of this stuff. That don't get Deb started. I already see.
I have a whole nation full of women who are not awake at all. Not awake. They think it's going to stop with abortion, and they probably never would have an abortion, and that's fine. You know what? I may never have one. I've never been faced with that, thankfully. Okay, but you know what? That's not a place for the government to play. It really isn't. And it's also not a place for anybody else to tell anybody else what they should be doing, and it's not a place where you create bounty hunters to rat on your neighbors so that you can make $10,000 in court. That's how they're enforcing laws that violate the Constitution. They're using citizens to rat each other out. This is what the GOP is doing across the country. And to me, it's reprehensible. It really is. And in closing, let me just say one other thing. The notion that this country is one people is a myth that we need to get over, okay? There's a whole part of the nation that has never gotten over the fact that they can't fly the Confederate flag.
Yep.
And it is what it is. I don't know that I can ever see eye to eye with those people. I can't. I could certainly never live there.
Right.
That reminded me. Sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
It reminded me of something that on one of our trainings, they talked about how America is not a melting pot. It's a tossed salad.
Yeah.
Because a melting pot takes everybody and makes them one. A tossed salad, everybody brings something to the salad, to the table. And that's how we have to start looking at it. And that's hard for people.
It is.
Apparently.
You think that
they think if they legislate, they put in all this anti-trans legislation. Do they think trans people are just going to go away? This is a reality. It isn't.
Right.
It isn't a mental illness. And you know what, by the way, sexual orientation is sexual orientation. It is not sexual preference anymore. That was dispelled a long time ago. That was dispelled by science, just like being transgender is, just like being bisexual is. It happens. And you know what? Everybody's got the right to live their life the way they want to live it. It doesn't affect you. Okay? But why would you want your children that sheltered? They're going to end up seeing it somewhere in their life anyway.
You're not going to become a transgender just because you learn about what transgenders are. You're not going to become a lesbian just because you learn what they are, what they do.
It doesn't work that way.
It's insane. It's insane thinking that way.
Or there's a bathroom in the school for designed for transgenders are going to turn. It's like a magic room that you turn kids into transgenders because come on, give me a break.
Listen to me. My child. My child was so nervous about going into the transgender bathroom at Stoneham High that never went to the bathroom when he was at school. Never. Nope. Just didn't feel comfortable. Didn't feel safe.
Yeah. I can see that.
Well-
That's one of the, yeah.
Deb mentioned this before too. All of this stuff that's coming out, and because people don't do their research, they're being too complacent about it. You're talking about, anti-abort or the anti-abortion laws making it illegal. These laws are not going to stop. There are people out there talking about making interracial marriage illegal again. So
they're trying to suggest that we need legislation to keep married people from using birth control.
Oh, I've heard that, and I've heard the other recently too.
Now they're debating whether we should continue to fund birth control through Medicaid. Well, I don't know. They're going to take a man's Viagra away? I don't think so. But it's like, I feel like, we are definitely headed towards Gilead. I don't care what anyone says. I mean, we are the United Nations of Gilead. That is where we're going here. And if people don't think that shit can actually happen, all you need to do is sit back and assume that it's never going to happen. And I can promise you that it will, because they will take this as far, the Christian right is driving all of this under the surface, and that'll be a big part of the website. The Christian right has been driving all of this since, I don't know when, way beyond, way back from when George Bush, the old man, was president. They were starting to ramp it up then.
Right.
But you know what would happen when Donald Trump got in? He was like throwing gasoline on a fucking fire.
Yep.
In 4 years, he escalated this shit to the point where I can't even look at him anymore without feeling sick. I really can't. I think he's just reprehensible. I really do.
Well, it gave people license to come out as bigots, basically. It gave them license to
legitimize white supremacy in America.
Yeah.
He's what he did. And now Kyle Rittenhouse is a big hero. That's fucking scary to me. A 17-year-old kid that uses a stimulus check to buy an automatic weapon, to take it across the border to a state where he wasn't invited to protect anybody, who kills 2 people and maims a third. And he's a hero. Let's give him a job as a congressional aide. Give me a fucking break. Okay. So again.
Well, hold on 1 second. I got one more thing to show Maria, if she hasn't seen it, because I think it's so you mentioned Kyle Rittenhouse. Maria, have you seen the AR Junior?
No.
Oh, wait. Just wait. You're going to love this. We did this on a show too.
This is a tactical rifle for children.
This is an automatic weapon.
It's an automatic weapon for kids.
Oh my God. Instead
of an AR-15, it's called the JR-15.
Now, it's also designed to look like a toy.
Yeah, it does look like a toy.
And
it's real?
Skull.
It's a real automatic weapon.
Why does anybody need an automatic weapon? Oh, so I got to plug in my computer. I don't understand that. Why anybody needs one anyway, because that's just to kill people. You don't hunt with those.
I agree.
Right? They're not like, I mean, I wouldn't hunt, but people hunt. I've had kids whose families hunt.
They don't use
one of those, do you?
Nope.
No, you can't.
You can't.
But Maria, it's cool. Look, there's a little skull with the pacifier in it.
The pacifier. That's adorable. Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's horrible. That's horrifying.
And it's funny because this company was a parts manufacturer for automatic weapons that just decided this was a good time to do this.
Yep.
This is sick.
It is.
Yep.
Only here with the GOP in control could they do that. But it is scary. It really is. And, of course, you get the whole thing. It teaches kids gun safety. No, it doesn't. You can do that with something else. You don't need an automatic weapon to do that.
You can do it if you're I don't know if you're a hunter, but you don't need an automatic. I don't see the purpose for automatic weapons in general.
I don't know. They're military weapons. And the only reason they exist is because people say they're entitled to them under the Second Amendment.
But they're for killing people.
They are. That's all they're for. Because that's why they use them in the military. Okay. Right. But it was George Bush, the old man, who actually instituted the automatic weapons ban. It was his son who allowed it to expire because he was under pressure from the NRA. So they just let it expire. They didn't even bring it up and discuss it. It just was allowed to expire. So it has never been brought back. And it was passed now. See, the Democrats don't have a big enough majority.
That weapon is also lighter weight, so kids can carry it around easier.
And
So
backpack.
yep.
School.
There's also you laugh. There's actually also a pistol, an automatic pistol. They absolutely could do that. So, to any teachers who are going to listen to Maria's interview, just a little thing. If you see a gun with a skull and a pacifier actually on it, the logo's actually on it. That's a real weapon. Just so you know.
Okay.
If you ever see one.
I'm going to kill the recording.
Okay.